problem was that in front of the Merkava was little units, soldiers, foot soldiers, with anti-tank missile. And even the Merkava couldn't handle the advance of the new anti-tank missile. Even the Merkava can't do it.
The Israelis were surprised by Hezbollah's new weaponry. The modern Russian-made anti-tank missiles Hezbollah was using had been acquired from Syria and Iran. Hezbollah was using them with deadly effectiveness. The Lebanon war was going increasingly high-tech.
Israel
developed the Merkava and turned it into a symbol of Israeli military technology. It showed it off to all the armies of the world. It became a legend. And so, in response to this, Hezbollah acquired weapons with the aim of destroying the Merkava. They developed, and we developed too, and we surprised them.
Hezbollah fighters were waiting in tunnels and bunkers. To the surprise of the Israelis, they kept emerging like ghosts to strike the tanks entering Lebanese villages.
Hezbollah was waiting for the tanks, and they knew exactly how to hit them. They knew exactly where the soft spots are, and they used missiles, and we have lost several of the tanks and a lot of soldiers.
Such losses were of great concern to the Israelis. The Merkava tank was a powerful symbol of Israel's military superiority. Yet well-armed and well-trained Hezbollah guerrillas were firing at the tanks from very close range and scoring direct hits. It seemed as if the ghosts of a past war were coming back to haunt the Israelis.
The
Israelis were facing another war, a war like that of '73. Its opponents had determination and modern weapons, and so the Merkava was in a situation against Hezbollah fighters similar to that of Israeli tanks against Egyptian infantry in '73.
The 1973 Arab-Israeli War was known by the Arabs as the October War and by the Israelis as the Yom Kippur War. It had been a painful lesson for Israel, and in particular the Israeli Tank Corps. 6 years earlier, the Israelis had comprehensively defeated the Arab armies in the Six-Day War. However, by 1973, the Egyptians had rearmed, mindful of Israel's mastery of tank warfare.
The Soviet Union supplied us with large numbers of anti-tank guided missiles. They were distributed to all levels of Egyptian infantry units.
The Israeli Tank Corps at that time consisted of American-made Patton and British-made Centurion tanks, which the Israelis had upgraded. Israel did not yet have its own tank. On October the 6th, 1973, thousands of Egyptian soldiers crossed the Suez Canal in an attempt to reclaim the Sinai captured by Israel 6 years earlier. The Israelis sent in their tanks to repel the attack.
The Israelis expected that the Egyptian infantry would run away as soon as a tank approached, but this time no one was running.
The Israelis attacked in their usual tactics, and they were met by an incredible barrage of handheld anti-tank wire-guided missiles.
This was the first time in history the anti-tank guided missiles had been used in war.
They lost many tanks, and this was a shock to them. And we learned later that most of the Egyptians who came over, those kids, were carrying an anti-tank missile.
The Soviet-made wire-guided anti-tank missiles used by the Egyptians proved stunningly effective. Israel lost hundreds of tanks during the 1973 war. This cemetery in Tel Aviv holds the graves of many of those tank crewmen killed in that war. The Israelis had paid a high price for failing to take heed of new innovations in anti-tank weaponry. This sobering experience was the catalyst for a momentous decision. Israel would build its own tank, a tank that would become known as the Merkava.